What's up, everybody? In this video, I'm going to be answering the question, can I throw my Harbor Freight hatchet? Stay tuned. Welcome to 411 Outdoors, my friend. If you find these videos helpful or entertaining or resourceful, I would be honored to have you as a subscriber and would greatly appreciate it. Now, we're answering the question, can I throw my genuine hickory $12.99 hatchet from Harbor Freight? Because after all, if I could, it would be very convenient based on the price. Well, you know, not to be overly sarcastic, but you're an adult, you can throw whatever axe you want to throw. It just may not be an axe that's built well for throwing, and you may not enjoy the dynamic of throwing that axe. The question I want to answer is this a good throwing axe? You know, it's $12.99. I've seen a ton of reviews on this axe, and a lot of people like this axe. It can be easily modified. I've seen people do some really cool things with this Harbor Freight hatchet. I've seen, you know, them grinding the blade down, redesigning the handle. I love it. I love this axe. I think for $12.99, this axe is a steal. But most of my dealings in the area of axes has all to do with throwing. And if you're anything like me, you want to get out and throw, and you don't want to spend a bunch of money. You don't want to have to spend some of the prices, you know, that you see on Amazon for throwing axes. Now, how does this compare to a competition thrower? I watched a video recently that I thought was very helpful that talked about some of the best axes that you could get for throwing. And the very first axe that was brought up was one called a competition thrower. Actually, it looks very similar to something like this, with the exception of the fact that the handle's a little bit straighter and it's a little bit lighter. For example, the competition throwers are about a pound. Well, this is 1.25 pounds. This is just a little bit heavier, probably because the headstock's a little thicker. But that doesn't make a whole lot of difference when you're throwing. It doesn't to me. As I mentioned earlier, the handle with a competition thrower is like completely straight. This is just about straight. The weight on this axe is also very evenly distributed. So is this a good throwing axe? That's the question. In my opinion, for the money, yes. Yes, I believe that it is. I've thrown it several times. I'm perfectly happy with it. And let's just get down to it. This is $13 spent. And it's a way to get into the game of throwing. You know, axe throwing has gotten really popular. You know, it seems like every time I turn around, there's more axe throwing facilities opening up, and you know, you're seeing it. You know, you're just seeing axe throwing becoming more popular, and you know, it's not cheap to go out into the public and throw axes. Me, I've got my target set up here in my backyard. I've got a range that I have built back here for knife and axe throwing, and I can get back here and throw as many times as I want to. I've got a lot of different axes. I've done reviews on the Smith & Wesson throwing axes, the Sahara Sailors. These are the thinner, smaller throwing axes that have a edge on all sides of the blade. I've done a review on the S-Wing Sportsman axe. I love that axe. And now I'm covering this one. And for 13 bucks, you can have a throwing axe. Now, what you throw this at is going to make or break you, because, you know, I've thrown this at a couple of different targets. One was good, one wasn't. If you're throwing this at boards, if you're throwing this at a target that's just made out of boards, like you see a lot of knife targets, it's not going to stick, but maybe one out of a few times. The blade's just too thick. If you grind it down really thin, it might be a different story, but it's still a little heavy to be throwing at boards. You know, I would throw this axe at the inside grain of a tree. I'll show you in a bit. I'll throw this a few times to let you see what I'm talking about. If you're throwing at the right target, you find out this is a really great axe. I would do a pretty huge injustice to the axe if I didn't let you know that it does have a lifetime warranty. Harbor Freight's really good about lifetime warranties. They replace the stuff that gets messed up. It gets busted up, it gets broken, and this has a lifetime warranty attached to it. What we're going to do is I'm going to throw this. I'm going to just let you see for yourself. I'm going to throw this at one of my axe targets that I think is very appropriate for this kind of axe. Let you see how it sounds, how it throws, and just let you make an assessment. I think it's for 13 bucks. The answer is yes. Get out and get one and throw it. Just make sure you've got the right target. But let's take some shots and see what you think. This is just a target that, you know, I made from an old cut down pine, pretty good size. But this right here is a yes for Harbor Freight axe throwing. This is a no-no. Just doesn't do well. I throw knives at this. Does well with knives, does not do well with the axe. Something like that, something like this, or something like this. Okay, it does well with these kind of axes. Let's take some throws. So, you know, even with the factory setting, so to speak, on the sharpness, still a pretty decent penetration there as long as you're using the inside grain of a tree. Didn't have this kind of luck throwing it at boards, but, you know, as you can tell, this does very well, you know, with this kind of surface. So as you can tell, with the right target, you can throw this axe all day and it'll do just fine. Now, with that said, I do want to say a couple of things. Axe throwing is governed by distance, okay? And different axes take a different amount of time to take a full rotation before they make their stick. If you're throwing a steel throwing axe that's kind of thin and small, kind of like the ones I reviewed, the Smith & Wesson, the Sahara Sailors, you know, those can make a full rotation out of your hand in about 10 feet. Something like this is going to need more distance. This axe is heavier, it's longer, and it's going to take more time. You're going to need more distance between yourself and the target to make a full rotation. Because if you're missing constantly and hitting the handle or hitting this side of the axe or the wrong side, your axe is not going to last very long. That's one thing I can say about any throwing axe, is that, you know, if you're beating it up through missing, you know, it won't last as long. To protect the longevity of the axe, you want to get good at hitting your target. And that means figuring out the right distance. So once you find your distance, mark it out and then try doubling your distance. That's a lot of fun to go back and double your distance. Just the same behaviors as far as your release, but if the distance is right, the rotation should be there. So I just wanted to kind of give you that as a heads up. No throwing axe can survive the beating of just constantly hitting the handle or hitting the wrong end. It will break the axe down in due time. So once you figure out your right distance and you can throw consistently, you'll discover that this will stand the test of time and do well for you and save you a lot of money. I hope this has been helpful. Thank you so much for watching these videos. Stay tuned for more content that's on its way. Take care.